Meta just silently released a new feature where you can now see incremental conversions in Meta Ads Manager. Come on, let me tell you all about it. Hey, I'm Barry Hott. I have been advertising on Meta or Facebook since 2008. I've spent about $1 billion in ads. I've generated billions of dollars in revenue. And I have an interesting perspective on Facebook ads. And I want to talk to you today about this new feature. I want to dig in here and show you some examples of how this incremental attribution reporting can help you better understand what's going on and make sense of it. So this feature, is interesting. It's supposedly based on Meta's testing. From what I see, basically, I would just explain it as somewhere between 1-day click and 7-day click attribution is where the incremental attribution lies. And if I were a betting man, I would bet that there's some formula that they're using that basically leads to that, or that involves that. It could be something else. It maybe involves some portion of 1-day view. For a long time, I've been coaching and teaching about 1-day view versus 1-day click versus 7-day click versus 28-day click. Well, I don't really talk about said 28-day click, so don't worry about that. But I often teach, and I have a whole course that really dives into this topic in depth, but I talk about how the system isn't trying to get you incremental sales. The system is just trying to get you as many conversions as it can. It doesn't care if those conversions are happening because the ad made it happen or because it was going to happen anyway. So the system doesn't care. Why would it care? It just has to take credit for serving an impression or getting a click. By the way, that's any click on an ad, not just a link click. So a view within 1 day or a click in order to count as a conversion after that. So if we take a look at this account here, what you can see, assuming that these are set up correctly, which in this case, I know they generally are, we can see how much is being spent on a new audience versus an engaged audience. This is the audience segments breakdown tool, which if you don't know about that, again, something I teach about in my course, I could tell you a little bit about it, but you set your existing customers and your engaged audience definitions at the ad account level. And then once you set those, you can get reporting on that in any sales campaigns that you're running. So not just Advantage Plus shopping campaigns, which is where these used to only work, but now this data is available for all of them. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at this breakdown, so new audience, engaged audience, and existing customers to see how much is spent on them and how much revenue they drove, and then comparing that to 1-day view, 1-day click, 7-day click, 28-day click, and the new incremental attribution setting. Now, I am a big proponent of how 1-day view typically is extremely non-incremental. So I know for this account is using all 7-day click and 1-day view attribution. It's also not excluding existing customers. So when they view the overall columns here, let's say we're just looking at purchase conversion value, right? And we're not looking at these breakdowns. Let's forget about them for a second. Let's forget about these attribution settings. It looks like they spent $82,000 and they drove $178,000. That would be great for this business. They would be thrilled. But when we look a little bit closer, what we actually see is that $75,000 of this 178 is from a 1-day view. That's a lot. We have to think about how is that possible? Why would that be possible? And what does that mean? If I trusted that Facebook was driving completely incremental sales, that'd be great. I'd be thrilled to be getting $75,000 worth of sales from my ads without people even clicking on them. People are just viewing the ad and then buying. But we generally know that isn't really the case because we can also add, let's see if it'll let us add engaged view. Now, engaged view here is 1-day engaged view. Conversions are counted when a skippable ad is played for at least 10 seconds or 97% of its total length. If it's shorter than 10 seconds. And then someone takes an action within 1 day. Let's add that in there. And we can see, it goes from 75,000 to 7,000. So it's very possible that a lot of those are images because images can't track an engaged view. But I think it's pretty safe to say that people aren't generally viewing the ads for less than 10 seconds and then going to buy. They're like, I got to see that. And then they immediately stop watching the video, scroll away, and then later buy it. I don't think so. What's more likely happening is that the system is delivering ads to users that the system already knows those people are in market, whether they've been shopping on other sites or whether they've been shopping on this brand site for days, hours, weeks. All it takes is for the system to deliver cheap impression, either let's call it stories or multi-advertiser ads Like it can show really cheap impressions to users to be able to easily get more view purchase conversions, which is what we see here. Scrolling over to look at ROAS here, right? It would be great if their ROAS was at 2.17. They'd be good as a business. But in reality, if we look at it a few different ways, from a 1-day click only view, that's a 1 ROAS, meaning that of all the money they spent today, they only made back 1x that in sales today. That's just from people who saw the ad and clicked on it, which I think is not really a fair way to judge how our ads perform. I don't think 1-day click is realistic because people see our ads multiple times, and just the 1-day click is dramatically undervaluing and undercounting how many sales we actually get just in reality. But then we look at 7-day click, it goes up, and maybe that is accounting for more. Maybe that's also letting the system take credit for more things than it's actually driving. And then we can say the same thing for 28-day click. And then when we look at this new metric for incremental attribution, or it claims here, incremental attribution enables optimization and reporting based on incremental conversions. It uses sophisticated models to predict the incrementality of conversions. This prediction determines how much to value conversions in optimization and reporting. It's using its signals, trying to tell you what to better look at, I think, in terms of what real performance is. And the reason why I want to do this breakdown by audience segment is because it helps us see how it can vary. Right? If new audiences generally colder audiences, then the gap between the total when it's 7-day click, 1-day view and the incremental, it's only 0.55, right? But also, in reality, that this number, this incremental, is right between the 1-day click and 7-day click. So if you were just looking at 1-day click, you'd be pretty close. And if you're just looking at the 7-day click, you'd be pretty close. Those numbers would probably be better for you to actually be looking at in terms of how you're performing. Same thing with engaged audience. Engaged audience is even higher. Way more sales are attributed to 1-day view than 1-day click, which is not really logical. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be possible. It should not be possible for your ad to drive more view sales than click sales. Like, just think about it. Think about your own experience advertising on the platform. Think about how users typically act. That should be a red flag to you or anyone that something is not right and that it's probably not driving incremental actions at all. We see that to be the case here when we see that it's calling incremental attribution. It's saying, actually, yeah, it's a 1.2 ROAS, not a 3.2 ROAS. That's a difference of almost a 2 ROAS difference between those. Now, when we go look at existing customers, again, warmest audience, right? Engaged audience is going to be a warm audience, depending on how you define that. If that was visitors from the last day or 14 days or 30 days or 180 days, you can define that however you want, or based on like actions people take on the site. But existing customers, again, depending on how you set that audience, existing customers are your warmest audience. And they're the most likely to buy again for many things. There's some products and services where they might not buy again. So existing customers might not be a good marker here. I generally recommend either excluding existing customers completely, or if you want to target them separately in a controlled environment. Because when you do stuff like use 7-day click, 1-day view attribution setting, and you allow the system to spend as much as it wants on existing customers, where here it spent just under 10%, about 8% of the budget on existing customers, which does a few things. One, it does so at a 4.2 ROAS, but is that really a 4.2 ROAS? Well, let's look at the 1-day click. It's a 1.58. On a 7-day click, it's 1.99. If we skip over to incremental, it's almost a 2. So let's say that's accurate. That's not terrible, right? Like a 2 ROAS is not terrible, but or 1.94 is not a terrible ROAS, particularly for this business. But it's very bad compared to the 4.21 that's being reported because they're using the 7-day click, 1-day view attribution setting. So the system, because they're using the 7-day click, 1-day view attribution setting, it's misleading here. So their client or the end user or the advertiser themselves might be thinking that their performance is really, really good, but the system isn't actually driving that much value. That's the first problem. The second problem, and I'd say the bigger problem, is that the system is actually optimizing for those 1-day views. So not only is it making the advertiser, the human, believe that it's doing better, which makes them want to spend more on it or think that they're doing a better job, but the system is also trying to get those. Like, it would be probably better if the system, instead of going after this 0.92 ROAS, spending money to get these ROAS numbers here, it'd be better off trying to get more click sales, because the click sales are more incremental. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something off here, but like, if you have a better way to explain this, well, I'd love to hear it. But from my years of running ads, my years of doing actual incremental lift testing, both in Meta and using third-party tools, this aligns very closely with my interpretation and understanding of how ads work. Now, I'm not going to say that one-day view is completely non-incremental, but I am going to say that when we know that it's particularly non-incremental for engaged audiences, which is recent visitors, and existing customers who are people that you're most likely to take action, then we can generally understand how and why the system is cheating here, and how and why we can see that it can be less incremental. I'm not saying it's totally non-incremental, but it's way less incremental than what it reports here. And when the system is reporting this and it's optimizing for that, it's not optimizing your budget as effectively as it could if you were doing click-only attribution. What's the takeaway here? I'd say one-day click attribution, you can optimize for it, but make sure you're adding some buffer to the end of that. Use a multiplier upon that. If you're using 7-day click attribution setting, maybe that's overcounting what you're actually bringing in. Maybe not. I don't know how accurate this incremental attributions thing is. But also, if you're using 7-day click, 1-day view, please use this as a signal to like, go reconsider either your attribution setting or your targeting, and specifically your exclusions. Because if you're allowing the system to do this, you are doing a disservice to yourself, to your client, to your business, and you're not helping yourself. One of the other biggest problems here is you're probably studying which ads have the best ROAS or the lowest CPA. If you're not breaking down by this breakdown of audience segment to be aware of which ads are actually getting the most sales from your coldest audience, then how are you going to make better ads to scale? Your goal should be making more scalable ads for your coldest audiences, not for your warmest audiences and your existing customers. And if you just chase the highest ROAS, then you're going to wind up making ads that are just really good at taking credit for sales that happen from your existing customers. That's literally the audience with the highest ROAS. And the thing with the highest ROAS, this entire grid here, is 1-day view for existing customers, right? That's tied with 28-day click for existing customers. That's insanity. Existing customers of your brand are not buying your product again from your ads because they're seeing ads. They are buying it again because they're ready to buy it again. They're buying it again because they need to buy it again. They're not buying it again because they're seeing this ad again. This ad is being shown to them before they buy it. And when the system can deliver the cheapest possible impressions to them every single day, there's no harm in that, because it'll just take credit for the sale when it inevitably happens. And the system is smart enough to understand that. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is actually what it does. And I would challenge you to think, if you were a human who had to make this optimization, and your game, the game you were playing, the challenge you had to accomplish was to get as many conversions as you can, you would do the same thing too. You could run a reach campaign, optimize for reach, targeting your recent visitors. And if you ran that, I guarantee you will see a ton of 1-day view conversions, but they won't be incremental. That doesn't mean that they're driving actual sales. It just means that the ad is being shown to them and the system is tracking a conversion after just that ad is seen as an impression. Maybe not even seen, but at least it was served on the device, because all it needs to do is be served on a device for it to count as an impression. It doesn't have to be paid attention to for any amount of time. I hope this is a wake-up call for some advertisers to, first of all, use this attribution setting tool more, because it just shows you what the attribution reporting is for these different windows so that you can make better decisions, and hopefully stop optimizing for 1-day view conversions, because they're really not incremental here. They're really not helping you, and they're taking credit for a lot. If your business, you really want to have a 2 ROAS, having an actual 1.2 isn't great. That means you're spending a lot of money to get a lot of ROAS that isn't actually happening, or you're getting a lot of revenue that isn't actually happening. So let's agree here, even if this isn't a perfect metric, this is aligning with what I've been saying for a long time. This is what Meta is suggesting you focus on in terms of doing better optimizations, doing better analysis, and making better ads so that you can scale your business more. Because deep down, even though it doesn't seem that way when you optimize for it, Meta benefits when you make better ads. Meta benefits when you make more money because you will spend more money. So they want you to look at this stuff and make better decisions about your ad dollars and make better decisions about your creative so you can make better ads for users that make you more money and makes you scale up more. Think more about how to pay attention to this number here and think about what that means for your business if you're currently letting the system target your existing customers and you're using 7-day click, 1-day view, and you're seeing a really nice return on ad spend, but maybe it's really not that nice. And now to some of you who are like, well, Barry, even the 7-day click, 1-day view numbers don't match my Shopify numbers. They don't even reach that level. And Facebook advertising is maybe your only traffic source. That's okay. They shouldn't be one-to-one. They really can't be. So if you're advertising on multiple platforms, then you'll definitely see overlap of conversion credit. But if you're only using Meta, that'll be an example where I've seen people they expect it to add up one-to-one, but that doesn't take into account the fact that this is a social platform. So people can share your ads. And if someone shares your ad and someone else buys from that, that doesn't count towards a conversion. That doesn't count as a conversion on your ads. Same thing goes if someone shares it off of platform, right? If someone text messages or otherwise sends that thing to someone else, or someone sees an ad, clicks on it, thinks about it, and then comes back months later without seeing another ad, or submits a lead and then an email gets them to activate. Maybe then they'll get triggered as a view conversion if they had an impression shared to them, but otherwise they might not get tracked at all, and that's okay. Having your in-platform conversions match your Shopify conversions should not be your goal. You should instead get a better understanding of the days and weeks and months at your certain CPA level, what that nets out to your actual business. What is the actual spend and conversions that you can get in Meta that actually leads to good business results in Shopify or elsewhere? And how do you build a multiplier on this? Because you don't want this multiplier. You don't want the view conversions, which are, when you optimize for them, they're misleading. The system is not optimizing your best interest. You want to add a multiplier to this so that you can basically do this. Is this the amount of revenue that's being driven? Probably not. I bet you that this company's driving more revenue than that from these ads, but it's still, that's what it can track and attribute. Optimize for 7-day click or 1-day click and build a multiplier on that so that you can know, even though it says we're getting $104,000, I think we're actually getting 150, right? Based on the value of our advertising, generating other social and viral engagements and sales from that. If you find any of this interesting, please check out my course. We dive into this even deeper so you can get an even better understanding of how and why the system cheats and why you need to look out for this and how you can better defend against this and set up your account and set up your campaigns in ways that don't allow this to happen. So if you're at all interested in that, if you love the sound of that, please check out buildingadswithbarry.com right now. The link in the description. I don't know what you're waiting for. Check it out. We launch the course on May 19th. This new cohort launches. The first cohort was amazing. We had over 200 students and the reviews from it have been incredible. Please go check out the testimonials. You will be amazed at how much money people made from this. It is, in the grand scheme of things, this course is actually incredibly cheap when you consider how much value you will get from it. It is an absolute no-brainer. If you are still watching this right now, you need to take this course. I don't care if you've been advertising like me for as 17 years or if you've been advertising for 1 year. There is guaranteed to be at least one mega nugget in there of something that I know that you don't. I have had other experts take this course and come to me and tell me how many things that they had no idea about Facebook ads, whether it was a big thing or a small thing that they didn't know how to use. They didn't even know it existed. Stuff like that. There's so much that you can learn from this. Literally all it takes is one nugget from the course for it to pay for itself. And the course is jam-packed with nuggets. It's not just nuggets. It is massive concepts. I don't know what you're waiting for. Click the link right now. Check out buildingadswithbarry.com. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.